Quality Management and Benchmarking presents Samvaad QMB, Conversations on Quality at Symbiosis International University.
Hello Symbiosis. This is Dev Sanyal and we are back with yet another episode of Samvaad QMB, Conversations in Quality, an initiative by the Quality Management and Benchmarking at Symbiosis International University. Today's episode focuses on a central tenet of not just SIU but the entire higher education ecosystem: research. Along with pedagogy, research forms the core pillar of academic life and discipline at SIU. The university boasts one of the most research-conducive environments across its campuses. It is equipped with cutting-edge research tools, housed in state-of-the-art research facilities, and helmed by some of the top leading scholars of their field. In the past 4 years, after the introduction of NEP 2020, the very approach to research and its place within Indian higher education institutes, or HEIs, have undergone a sea change. Much is new regarding resources and guidelines to boost the quality of research and publications. But what are these changes? And what are some of the immediate challenges that we need to tackle in this regard? Well, joining us today to answer all of these questions and have a samvad about this is Dr. Bhushan Borotikar, the head of research at the Symbiosis Centre for Medical Image Analysis here at SIU. Dr. Borotikar has been engaged in research for the past 22 years. He has interesting career graph. He received his MBA through the Indo-German Training Center in Mumbai in 1999 and has his Masters of Science in Biomedical Engineering from the University of Texas at Arlington, USA in 2003. He completed his joint PhD in biomedical engineering from Cleveland Clinic and Cleveland State University, Ohio in 2009. Since then, he has been engaged in active research in biomedical engineering and medical imaging. His primary research focuses on building translational tools to solve clinical problems using his expertise in the multidisciplinary domains of medical imaging, artificial intelligence, sports medicines, and others. Dr. Borotikar has also published over 50 scientific papers in international peer-reviewed journals and presented his research at more than 85 international conferences. He has also written 3 book chapters. He has received multiple research grants and travel grants, funding from national and international funding agencies as well. Dr. Borotikar has adjunct appointments as a visiting associate professor at the University of Cape Town in South Africa in the Division of Biomedical Engineering and as an honorary research associate faculty at IIMT Atlantique, a French technical university located in the city of Brest in France. He is also actively involved as a mentor for Symbiosis' startup incubator program through Symbiosis Centre for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, SCEI. I'm really excited to have you for this conversation, which I think is revolving around not just one of the central tenets of Symbiosis International University, but its research has become a watchword for the entire higher education ecosystem in India right now. So let me just jump into the very first question that comes to my mind. And that question about research is why? Because, sir, in an academic and industry scenario where we are witnessing an overall focus on vocational training, talks of skill development, we also see a renewed focus on research. Should we see these two factors, two aspects, or two focus points as counterintuitive? Or has research also become an essential vocational skill to cultivate? What do you think?
That's a very interesting perspective about research. To me, by no way research can be termed as a vocational skill. To understand this, let's take a step back and look at the players involved in this. We have three players here. We have an industry, we talk about research, and we have a university as a higher educational institute like our Symbiosis. Now, when you talk about research or when you talk about vocational skills, what should a university do? Should they focus more on the research and development, or should they focus on vocational skills? Let's say they only focus on vocational skills so that industry gets their students who are trained and have a skillful labor for them to work on, right? Now, the problem with that is tomorrow, if the product changes, if the technology changes, if there is a new innovation comes into play and new manufacturing practices are there, then your vocational skills that the university is focused on has no value. Now, can you just imagine where these new innovations and technologies coming from? Obviously, they are coming from another university which is focused on the research and development part and not on the vocational skills. So to say that at the least, we should have a good balance between a vocational skill training as well as research and development in an industrial setting. So to me, they're not counterintuitive at all. It's in fact the research and development that drives down the need for vocational skills.
That's really interesting that you kind of distinguished between the research and the vocational skills, but you also sort of brought together the two aspects in terms of how they are related, how they are complementary. This sort of brings me to the next question, which is a central question, which is an essential question. How do we define research? What is research? And what strategies do you suggest to stay updated with the latest developments and advancements in the field of research?
Research is a creative and systematic work conducted towards increasing the knowledge. Now, research process has a systematic understanding of 3 steps. First is collection of data. Second is understanding the data, or rather keeping the data in particular format as an information. And third one is analyzing this data and making interpretation out of this data using certain tools for specific understanding or to increase the knowledge, right? So now we have research and we have a research process. The research process typically leads to a scientific fact. Now, what is a scientific fact? A scientific fact has basic 3 characteristics. The first characteristic of any scientific fact is that it should be repetitive. Any scientific fact has to be repetitive. The second characteristic of a scientific fact is that it should have gone through rigorous questions or rigorous process of questioning. Third characteristic of a scientific fact is that it has to abide by the knowledge that already exists. So these are the 3 main characteristics of any scientific fact. Okay. Now you talk about research, you talk about research process, you talk about scientific facts. Now, as a researchers, we can adopt many strategies to understand knowledge or scientific facts. And this could be subscribe to academic journals, or involve yourself with conferences that are there in place, or go and talk to researchers within your domain, or you can also go to libraries. That Symbiosis, for example, has wonderful library and has wonderful collection, as well as has wonderful subscriptions to different journals and different magazines and so on and so forth. So that would be your best place to connect to research. Research in your domain, not only in your domain, but the domain that exists surrounding your domain. And this is more important because you need to know the multidisciplinarity of your own research and how it can be taken over, or rather how it can be expanded to other domains as well.
Right. Very interesting, sir. And you very rightfully pointed out towards the resources aspects as well. This also brings me to the question of, and I think one of the central questions about thinking about research, which is the idea of quality in research. So, how do you sort of define quality in research, and how has the essential criteria for defining the quality of research projects and publications evolved in the last couple of years?
Now, quality in research has to do everything with what you call as a scientific fact. So we already saw that scientific fact has 3 characteristics. Quality in research or any research project has to follow these 3 characteristics very clearly. If one of them is not followed or less followed, then the quality of research project derails. Now, quality of research project and quality of research publications are completely 2 different aspects. When you talk about quality of publications, not only you abide by these 3 characteristics of a scientific research, but there are also other key pieces that you should follow. Quality publication by first means is that it's a scientific fact, right? That means that it should be repeatable. That means that any person who is in the domain, or maybe even not in the domain, take a published research paper, take the data and methods that are explained in that paper, and should be able to replicate the same experiment, should be able to get the same results after replicating the same experiments with the same methods with the same data. If this is not happening, then that's not a scientific fact. Okay. Now, where does this question or rigorous questioning come from? Is from a peer review process. Any journal has a peer review process installed as a part of a publication. Right. Now, why that peer review process is there? To abide by the second characteristic of our scientific fact, which is your research should undergo rigorous questioning. Now, who's going to question you? Your peers who are working on the same domain, same field, same research direction. They will rigorously ask you question your research, your results, and make sure that your research is gone through this rigorous understanding about the information that you collected in your data and about the analysis and interpretation of that information that you did in your paper, in your manuscript. So that is the second part of your quality check. Once the quality check passes through this rigorous questionnaire method, then it gets published.
It's very interesting how you sort of took those 3 central tenets of research, and then we can very clearly see those 3 central tenets actually playing central role in the quality, in ensuring the quality of the publication itself. So that is very interesting. But this also sort of gets me thinking that, you know, the nature of research, the definition of research is also evolving. Right, and we are especially in a time when there is a renewed focus on research. Can you share some challenges that researchers might encounter in maintaining the quality of research and publications, and What are your suggestions for addressing them, especially in this evolving scenario of research?
So I think this is a question where you need to address the elephant in the room. So as to what are the challenges a researcher faces, I think the first and foremost challenge any researcher faces is pressure to publish. Pressure to publish their research, pressure to publish in general, pressure to publish so that not only the researcher but the university gains out of it. Now, where does this pressure to publish come from? Let's understand that. Now, the pressure to publish is not a university's making. Pressure to publish comes from the system that we have in place. What system we talking about? We're talking about the system of national and international rankings. Somehow, we have incorporated number of publications done by a university as a measure to understand the effect, or rather to understand the success of a university. So more the university would publish, the better rank it would get. This is the metric that we induced or introduced in our ranking systems. And that's where this pressure to publish comes from, because every university wants to be a higher ranked university in national as well as international ranking systems. So that's where the pressure to publish comes from. So university wants to higher the rank, they want their researchers, faculties to publish. But there is also an interesting aspect which most of the universities may overlook, that when you're publishing, just publishing number of papers is not important, or rather, it is not also counted. In many international ranking systems, publication also has some weightage, no doubt about it. But the citations that are gone with the publication for particular publication, that also has a weightage, and that also is a key factor. Sorry, I'll give you an example. Let's say I publish 20 papers in 1 year. And in the next year, out of 20 papers, only one of them gets 2 citations over the entire period of 1 year. That tells a lot of things about me as a researcher. That means that I'm publishing for the sake of publishing, because there is a publishing pressure on me. And then I'm not paying attention to the research quality that I'm trying to publish, or the content that I'm trying to publish. So this is an important aspect, because if you want to add to a knowledge using a scientific fact, and if that scientific fact and knowledge is not being used by anyone in your research fraternity as well as outside your research fraternity, what is the use of that knowledge? That is redundant. So you better not publish it, rather than publish it and add it to a knowledge that has nothing to do with the actual knowledge that is usable, right? And that's why, and that's how the pressure to publish has to be looked upon from a different perspective. In this system in which there is a pressure to publish, a researcher must emphasize on quality and content of the research that they are publishing. And I'll give you a very interesting thought, or a very interesting idea, not idea, it's actually a thought coming from none other than Albert Einstein. And he said that, and I quote, that an academic career to which a person is forced to produce scientific writings in great amounts creates a danger of intellectual superficiality. Now that's a very interesting quote coming from Albert Einstein back in those days, when there was no ranking systems in place, and yet he understood that if you ask somebody to just publish, you are intellectually superficial.
Both the sort of larger overarching frames that you've given also brings to light the idea that there are, as we go forward, there are young scholars who are getting into research, whether that be at a master's level, whether that be at a PhD level, whether these are professors and teachers, new teachers who are coming into our higher education ecosystem and thinking about research as as a tool for academic self-portrait. With all of this in mind, what advice would you give to early career researchers or junior faculty members on how to establish themselves as contributors to high quality research and publications, of course, within their respective fields? And would you say collaborations and interdisciplinary approaches are key here?
Again, very interesting question, and it's important for a university like us to know what steps should be taken or what type of tools or help we can provide to our early career faculties to perform this quality research, definitely. Now, the first advice or the first direction they should look at is they should build a very strong foundation. Very strong foundation in the research domain that they are into, the methodologies used in that domain, the state-of-the-art technologies used in that domain, as well as the current aspects of multidisciplinary facts about these domains. Now, why I say so is, if you do not have a good foundation or a basic strong foundation within your own discipline of whatever, let's say a computer science or a management or even a law, if you don't have a fundamental foundation in your own discipline, your own research, you cannot go and collaborate with somebody else. You cannot go and understand details or deep other research that is going on in other categories along with your own categories. So the first advice is that you build your foundation very strong, and then second is you start publishing strategically. What does it mean? It means that whatever publications you do as an early career researcher, you should do it in a fundamental understanding or a fundamental knowledge addition, and not something that is applied and not something that is more into collaborative aspect. So once you set yourself as a person who understands the fundamentals, who has added to the fundamental knowledge of the domain that you are doing research in, then you go on and explore things outside. Then you can rather go for networking, go for multidisciplinary research collaborations that are around your research area. And what I believe is that if you follow this path, that you first build a strong foundation and then strategically publish, that process itself allows you to understand what is going on within your own research field, what is going on outside this research field, and how these two can collaborate on a multidisciplinary level. You yourself will figure it out. You don't need me or anybody else to do that. But at the same time, because the new early career researchers, they are motivated, they are enthusiastic, they are very interested in understanding things quickly, applying things quickly, getting results quickly, and doing something very great and adding to the knowledge gap very quickly. They may make mistakes, and if they make mistakes, it may take years to remove those mistakes from their career graph. And that's why I would also suggest that they should have an academic mentor. And this mentor would help them guide this entire foundational understanding, then your strategic publishing and your collaborative endeavors along your career path.
But it also brings to forth the observation that you made a few minutes ago, where you talked about the idea that there is a pressure for research, there is a pressure for publication, and somebody who has published so many papers, presented in so many conferences, published book chapters, has been part of this research ecosystem for some time. I am sure that there are instruments, tools, systems and structures for stress handling and dealing with this pressure. What is your favorite music? What is your favorite playlist? What helps you get through this pressure of publication?
Well, I do listen to flute and veena in the mornings hours, and jazz and piano in the afternoons, if I want to be in the zone. So,
well, Dr. Borotikar, it was very interesting, very fascinating talking to you, listening to your thoughts, your ideas, your inputs and your insights about the research ecosystem. With that in mind, thank you so much for joining us. That's all for today's episode. Goodbye.
Quality Management and Benchmarking presents Samvaad QMB. Thank you for your time and see you in the next episode.